welcome to Straight Talk with Steph, and today I've got my lovely friend Louise, who I've known for a good few years now. We're both in the same sort of property circles. We sort of started at the same time. So I just want to start by saying hi, welcome to my podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
And so Louise, let's start with, we've just been talking, but I want to get it on camera because I thought it was quite funny. So this is Louise from LMKB Properties. That's right, isn't it?
That is right, yep.
And you were just saying about how, so what advice would you give to somebody who's starting a business and trying to think of the name of it?
Don't use your initials, basically. I think so. My partner in business and life is Carl Bedard, which is K and B, and I'm Louise Murphy, so LM. And due to either a lack of imagination or a better idea, we decided that using our initials would be, LMKB Property. It seemed so obvious and easy to us, but when you're giving someone your website address, when you're giving someone your email, it's the amount of times I have to repeat is ridiculous. So I would say choose a word, just choose a word that means something rather than initials. That's my advice.
Doesn't it? It doesn't matter though, like your property name or your business name, really, does it? I suppose it just depends on, what you're doing. I find that when I'm like coaching people who are new, or even just speaking to people who are trying to come up with their company name, I think a lot of people overthink it. We definitely overthought it, and people say, oh, Bluestone K, like, where did you get that idea? And I'm like, I think we spent hours coming up with ideas, and I think one of them was sort of, I think it was like Phoenix Properties, and then we were like a phoenix rising from the ashes. That means that we failed and died and like
come back to life,
rising up again. And then in the end, we just went with Blue because Phil supports Everton. I do not.
Never mind.
Someone's got to. Stone because it sounds like solid. And then Key because we're buying houses, like key to the door. But I don't suppose. Oh, here we go. Here's the dog.
Hello.
But I don't suppose it really matters at all. Like we've got different company names that we but we only trade. Well, we're only visible as Bluestone K, but it's recognisable though, isn't it? Like people start to get to know you and see who you are. So let's start with them. I think we started round about the same time, and I remember being on a course with you, and I think you heard me on the phone. Hello, dog. You heard me on the phone and you said, oh, is that a Wirral accent I can hear?
No, it was the opposite way around.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay, I missed my constructive memory. Go on, refresh my memory.
So we were on a training course. I think we might have been down in Richmond.
Yeah.
And basically, because I've always said to Carl that I can tell the difference with someone from Wirral and someone from Liverpool, and he is like, you cannot at all.
Yeah.
And it was brilliant because you came over and you said, is that a Wirral accent I hear you?
It was me.
And I looked at Carl with like the smuggest grin on my face going, you can tell if you're from the area, And he basically then, I said, yes, it is. And then that was it. We just got chatting and went from there. I think we were on, I don't know whether that was buy to lets or...
I think it was creative finance.
Was it creative finance with Mark? And
it was creative finance. Because I think we did buy to let in Birmingham. Yeah, and then, so that must have been maybe 5 years ago nearly, or...
2019 maybe?
Something like that, yeah. So since then, so let's just back up then. So you already had a property, I think, you and Carl. Is that right? But what got you into it? Like, why did you decide, like, we're going to go on this education course, we're going to pay all of these tens of thousands like we've all paid? Like, what was it? Was it something that prompted it? Was it something that was always in the pipeline?
So I guess going back originally, so back in 2006, 2007, we were in this, do we get married? Everyone around us had been in the relationships, they were getting married. It was the thing that you needed to do. It was like, we'll get married, we'll have a couple of kids. We bought a house and, it was the next logical kind of following that path route. And I was like, £30,000 on a day, it'll be a nice day, but it's one day. So we decided we would invest that money in property instead. Yeah. So Liverpool, the capital of culture at the time, there were high rises being built all over the city. Effectively, it felt like we couldn't fail. We were going to buy off-plan apartments and then they were going to be delivered. 12 months later, we were going to sell them. They'd be worth much more and we'd clear our mortgage. Happy days. That was all we wanted to do. It was buy 2 flats, clear our own mortgage and life would be good. And then we were both happy in our sort of day jobs. So we were both project managers at MBNA, Bank of America at the time. And that was enough for us. We were happy with that. We just thought if we pay the mortgage, we'll have enough cash then to be doing, you know, more holidays, more luxury items. It was that simple. So that was the plan. So we bought these 2 properties. And then the release date was delayed because the block hadn't finished, and then it was delayed again. And then they just got released just at the time that the market crashed. So effectively we were handed the properties and the keys to the properties, and they sort of were not actually then worth what we paid for them. So very important lesson learned. Basically we were massively speculating. We thought we were like entrepreneurs and we couldn't go wrong, you know, proper Del Boy. But no, so we did that, and the interest rates went through the roof. So we then started using them like SA. Before SA was a big thing. So we were doing late rooms with them. We had, you know, you didn't have like key locks at the time. I had my granddad meeting people to let them into the property, and we had cleaners like going in at lunchtimes to try and turn them over and what have you. So we did SA with them for a bit. We did student lets. We've done, what else have we done with them? Just, standard buy to let. So we still own those properties now because, we just kind of thought, oh, okay. You know, they've always washed their face. They've always been fine. It just didn't make us the millions it was supposed to be. So we kind of steered away from property then. I think it was a case of, I don't know, we'd had our fingers burnt, I guess. I mean, not, you know, we're not ruined or anything like that by them, but it was like, we balls that one up. Or so then around about 2008, 2009, so I was contracting, and the government changed the tax legislation around how contractors are paid, legislation called IR35, which meant that our household income was then going to sort of take a substantial drop. And we were like, what do we do now? And Carl had taken redundancy, but he'd done like a number of things like market gardening. He was looking at opening his own brewery. And because he'd been out of work for a while, he couldn't just step back into being like a project manager. It wouldn't have been that easy or straightforward. So he'd spotted this advert on Facebook, which was like 2-hour property training. And he brought it to me, and I was like, really? I think we've been here before. But at the same time, we were buying the 2 flats in Liverpool. One of his very close friends had been and bought like loads of 2 up, 2 downs around the city, doing the whole buy, refurbish, refinance, you know.
Which is popular now, that BRRR. For us, it was just like buy, do up, refinance, but now it's a popular acronym, right? Okay, so they were all doing that.
So he was doing that, and he effectively then quit his job, and he was. So we were like, oh, you know, this is our opportunity to do what we possibly could have done last time. So we went on this 2-hour training. It was all, you know, rah rah, you'll be a millionaire by the end of the week, and I just thought, oh, this is a load of bullshit, really. To be honest, I just was like, I'm not buying into this. So we left the 2-hour free training without signing up, got into the car, and then we were in the car, and we were like, is this a sliding doors moment? Is this the opportunity that we should be taking? So effectively we then looked like idiots because we walked back into the room and signed up for some training, and went from there.
So we had a similar experience. It was a snow day. I think it was in January we went to that 3-hour seminar. Did you go to the one in Wrexham?
Knutsford, I think.
Ah, right, okay. So we were I had a snow day from school, and it was before COVID ruined it for teachers, so we didn't actually have to do any work. So I spent the day. I remember it was a snow day. Phil fell asleep on the couch, and I booked a holiday to go to America to see my best mate who moved out there. And then as I was scrolling through Facebook, it popped up, then that ad.
I think that must have been similar to Carl.
Was it Martin Roberts on yours?
I don't know. I just remember him coming saying, have you seen this? And I was like, okay.
Scam. But I said, because we did this house, and we always add in our sites, we'll do something else. Yeah. And I wouldn't say we dabbled, but before we even got this house, we were bidding on another one. We'd put in planning permission to build a house as well, and we learned a few bits and bobs, probably quite naively, from that process. And then obviously renovating this house, it's still not finished, renovating this house, we learned a lot, but obviously that's more of development than investment, and we didn't really know. So we saw the 2-hour come and learn how to make money from property. So we rocked up. on the snow day, nearly died on the ice on the way there, in the car. And yeah, I knew it was an upsell. And I remember, did they do with you the whole first 10 people to the back of the room, get it for like £1,000 or something like that? Was it the urgency there?
We didn't have, I don't remember that, but I remember it was quite a hard sell in the, so I worked for a bank at the time, and I remember partway through one of the days we were encouraged to phone up our banks to get credit card increases. Yeah. And I look back at the time, and those credit card increases were so you can use your credit cards to buy houses. And I look back now and think, no, it's so you can use your credit cards to pay for the education. So I basically said, I don't want my credit limit adjusting. I used to underwrite. I don't randomly want to phone up my bank because some trainer on a course that I'm still dubious about is requesting I do so. So I think I was labelled like one of the non-compliant, she's not going to sign up or whatever. But I noticed what they did do is people who were signing up earlier in the course, and they'd come down and they'd put this like folder on the desks of those people that had signed up, as if to say, yeah, look at this person, clever, they've signed up and what have you. And I think, I'm sounding really negative about it, and I'm grateful that I did it, because it's got me to the position where I am now. And had I not invested so much money, it probably would have been easier to kind of go, well, it cost me a couple of grand, so nothing major. Yeah. Whereas when you're like, it cost me 20,000+ pounds, you're like, I am making this work, I am making that money back, and I am going to make more. So I think as much as you can be aggrieved or think they didn't go about it in the best way, I'm still grateful that I did it and decided to go for it and just push forward with it. So it's a bit of a toughie, but
isn't it? I think I want to say Tony Robbins or Jim Rohn or somebody really inspiring. They say it's in those moments of decision that you shape the rest of your life. And I feel the same. For me at the time, I didn't even really fully know how interest worked. Like, that's how naive I was to finances and financial literacy, and I had no idea. Obviously, being an English teacher, I was never really interested in that anyway. Now that I am, because it makes me good money. But it was the same. It was like, do we invest? Well, when I look back now, I think we've probably spent 40k on just investing in ourselves, education, business mentoring, coaching, courses. And I don't regret that. And I am glad, like you, I'm glad that we've got to we're in a good position. There's been some really challenging times. And we've made decisions that weren't necessarily the best decisions, but we've owned them and we learn from them, because no one's coming to save us. We've just got to crack on ourselves.
It's your business, it's your future. It's, no one's there with like a big hand on you to say, this is the right way to do or what have you. Although, you talked there about, the money that you've spent originally, but then you're right, since then so we pay for a coach each month, we're part of a network, we pay for networking events, we pay for mastermind events, and it's that kind of continual education and that continual, you don't know everything, you're continually learning, and the amount that you start to absorb, or you don't realise how much you do know now compared to 5 years ago. You look back and you think I'm more resilient. If the same thing happens to me now that happened 3 years ago, it's like bounce through, move on. Whereas I think that's because of the people you surround yourself with. It's really cliched, but it's true, because if you've got people that can help, support, guide, all of that, I think it's really invaluable. So the money you pay for that, I don't think is wasted money, because the mistakes it can stop you making as well, because you can bounce those ideas and say, I'm thinking of doing this with this building, and someone will go, yeah, that's a brilliant idea, go for it. Or actually, maybe do this, or have you thought about doing that? Or to be honest, I wouldn't go near that, and this is the reason why. And then you can choose to take their advice or not, but at least you're getting other people. I suppose it's taking the right advice from the right people, isn't it?
That's it, because there's so many people out there, and this is a bit of an issue I've got with property coaching at the minute, or property education. I believe that there are people out there whom we've worked with and we know are shit hot. They're really good at what they do. They've got the experience, they've got the backing, they've got the social proof, they've been there and they've done that. And you want to learn from them, and they charge a fee for that, rightly so, because they've got to a position where they can.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of companies out there, a lot of individuals out there who call themselves coaches, and I suppose I've only really just started to fully understand how damaging that can be. If so, you can have the experience, but they're calling themselves property coaches without even coaching qualifications. So I suppose the issue I've got with it sometimes, I would never discredit their experience and their learning, but it's actually how can you convey that to somebody who doesn't learn in the way that you learn, who doesn't take in information that, and I'm thinking from a teaching point of view as well, and I'm thinking I wouldn't have a student who I thought was going to get an A star, I wouldn't be teaching them in the same way that I would teach a student on the CD borderline. I would teach them in different ways. And I suppose coaching, it's more than just coaching when you've got a property. It's business coaching, it's mentoring, it's training, it's educating. There's a bit of mindset in there. And I think the issue that I've got with it is I don't regret spending the money on it. But what I think now, it's a very unregulated industry. And you've got a lot of people out there claiming to have the experience, claiming to be coaches, charging a fortune for it, and they're not getting results. And I don't think that's right. And I think, so when we first started our training, obviously, what was it, 25 grand down there and then. And I remember frantically, Phil and I went back to the hotel, we were in Manchester, and we were like, fuck, who the fuck has got 25 grand? Like, who has that in the bank?
So we went out, I think, at lunch in Manchester as well, and you break for lunch and you go out, and I remember Carl walking down going, I've just paid £1,000 to be upsold, and now I'm being upsold again. This is ridiculous. And he just was fuming, walking around going, and it's you look back now and think it's naive to think I was going to come out of 3 days with the training that I needed to be able to do everything in property. So I get the fact that now I look back and go, there was always going to be more, going to be more. But because we'd walked out of the first one, and then you pay for the next initial course, and then they dropped the mother course on you.
Constant
It was
upsells.
just, but going back to the point you were making, and I suppose this is because of your background, I've never thought about it in that manner. So I've got my coach, and he has a particular style, and I think we've been with him for maybe I think we're in the 3rd year now. His style works for us, but I think we had probably a period of adapting to him, because the previous guy we'd worked with was probably more do this, and you'll get this.
Yeah.
Whereas the second coach was, well, how do we want to make this work? Or, I'm here to help you, but you really need to own your own stuff and drive your own business.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to do it, I can't make you do it.
Yeah.
I think we had a couple of times where, because we had such a coach that was dead, come back to me when you've done these 5 tasks and we'll talk about the next 5 tasks. And the next 5 tasks is so process orientated that when the second coach, he wasn't saying, well, have you done these 5 things? And have you done these 5 things? Because this is going to drive your output. We were like, why is he not asking us this? Then it almost made us grow up a little bit more, and saying this in my 40s, but because then it's like, well, actually, he's not there to do it for me. It's my business, it's my drive, it's my outcome, so I need to do it, and he is there to provide advice, guidance, and I don't know, maybe that's right or wrong, I don't know, but that's how it's now working with him. But it has made Carl and I so much more accountable than the previous coach. But I think the previous coach at the time was probably what we needed, because we were a lot earlier into the kind of property environment, I suppose.
That's exactly it. The first one worked for you for what you needed at that time.
Yeah, definitely.
But then I think you get to a point where you can outgrow people as well. So I know the coach that you're talking about now, I know, and you've been working with him for a while, and we've had conversations about him and his style and everything. And if that works for you, I think that's brilliant. That style wouldn't work for some people. I mean, when I do property coaching with the beginners, they're that nervous because it's huge. It's a total mind shift sort of set. They need in fact, all of them need the hand holding, and not all of them go on to buy houses because they're just like, this is really hard. Yeah. Like, yes, it is. You've got to take action, and it's like you said, you've got to own your decisions. You've got to be accountable. As I say, no one's coming to save you. No. You can hold somebody's hand as much as you want, but ultimately the decisions and the action has got to be your own. You've got to do it yourself. So I'm glad that's really working then. So do you want to talk to us about sort of like your first deal, not your Liverpool one, your first deal that you did from when you got educated to sort of what you're doing now, because I think it's amazing.
And the first deal that we did after our education, so the goal was cash flow. We sat down with the first coach and we said we want cash flow basically to replace the income that we were going to lose through the tax change. And he said, right, have you got any properties? We said, yeah, we've got these 2 buy-to-lets in Liverpool. He said, great, you can go straight onto HMO, because usually like HMO lenders, they'll want to have a bit of landlord experience. So almost these properties that had been not an albatross, but they actually then meant that we could go straight into doing HMOs and building up like a high level of cash flow. So the funny thing was as well is we looked everywhere but Wirral before we bought the HMO. We'd been to Doncaster, we'd been to Crewe, we'd been to Stoke, we'd been anywhere but Wirral. And I don't know why. I think it was just because I'm from the area, and it just, I don't know, because we've got so much knowledge about the area. I think it was just, anyway, but the first coach was like, why are you not looking there? There's industry there, people want HMOs, there's demand for rooms. So we bought a property there, which was a 4-bedroom and terrace, and I think we paid about 90 for it just before COVID. And we bought that and we thought this will make a HMO, the standard convert the rooms downstairs. So that is now 5-bedroom, 2 en-suites, 1 bathroom. It's by a hospital, it's not too far from Camberlaird's. We thought though it would be full 100% of the time. It's not amazingly boutique-y HMO, but it's, it was new, it was brand new, renovation, everything was nice in there, all clean, modern. It wasn't the beige and the magnolia, it's got nice blue colours and splashes of colour in there. But we always struggled to get like one of the rooms full, so it was always like 4 of the 5 rooms would be full, or then obviously the electric prices and electric prices went through the roof. So we just made a call then to change and pass it over to a social housing provider, and it's been great, to be honest with you. It's full, we don't pay any bills, we don't pay any maintenance, we just pay the mortgage and off we go, and we just see that funds dropping each month.
Are you is that a higher cash flow than renting the rooms out individually?
Yes, it is. It wouldn't be originally, because we did originally look to pass it to this company, and the bills were a lot lower at the time and what have you. So it would have been financially better if it was always full. It would have been better private, but then now it's better with the other company, definitely. And it's kind of spurred us on now, because we want to do more in that space. So that's kind of one of our primary goals for this year, is to do more of that sort of social housing.
I'm glad, because that's what I want to do as well. So that means that when I'm stuck, I'll just leave you a voice note as I normally do with a million different ideas, and then you go, oh, what about this? And I go, oh yeah, I'll do that instead. That makes so much sense. You're really good. I think you're quite, just going off on a tangent as I do, I think you're very left brain. Like, you're very analytical, logical, make the decision, be done with it. This is why I would do this. This is why, boom, I'm doing it. Whereas I sit there and I go, I could do this, I could do that. Well, I'm a philosopher, aren't I? Do you know what I mean? Half my degree is philosophy. So I'm like, oh, what about this? What about that? And da-da-da-da-da. But when you said your strategy, that's what you want to do more of, that's what we're focusing on now, because it makes the most sense, especially when everybody's doing SA.
Well, I'm scarred from SA from doing it from years and years ago. SA people, I mean, loads of people love it, loads of people make great money out of it and, really thrive and enjoy that. But for me, it's just not somewhere I want to go. And I'm very, very clear on that. And even when I see deals that come up and you think, oh, that might work as an SA, I just park it, because I still have my day job as well. If I try and focus on too many different variables, I'll not achieve anything. So it's like, for me this year, it's title splits and social housing and those are the things. And then, because having Carl as well, so he does property full time, he can focus more of his time on looking for specific deals and looking for things, or we do a lot of direct to vendor, so things will come out across us. But then if it starts veering like too far away, or we don't think that deal's going to work, it's like, just park it, because you could then spend days looking into things, trying to find out about other things, and if the deal kind of stacks up, then you think maybe you do invest that time. But I think I set in my head very clear boundaries. It's like, I want a house of this size with this many rooms to do this. So if Carl comes back with like, I found this 19-bed hotel for sale, I'm like, why? We're not looking for 19-bed hotel rooms. And he's like, but looks cheap. And I'm like, yeah, but this is what we want this year, or, you know.
Yeah. But that's where you've got to be focused. And I think when you, it's funny how I need to sort of practice more what I preach. You've got to have the end goal in mind. So if the end goal is, well, I don't know, get you out of the day job, or, you know, whatever that end goal looks like, you stay on one course until you're successful. Yeah. And I think that's how people become successful. So that's, you know, what we did. We didn't do the HMO, but we've done the buy-to-lets, the social housing, moved into SA. I mean, the most recent one, the Smuggler's Cove in Northumberland, Amble in Northumberland's doing really well. But we had to spend a ton of money on it. Whereas when you start to look at others, and this is why I think education's important, because you actually can look at a house and say, well, I could do this, but actually I've invested in myself, I've got the knowledge, and I know I could do that instead, and I can make double, triple the cash flow. And I think that's what separates sort of, and I'm not saying I'm by any means an expert, because we're all learning, we've all got things to learn, but that's what separates amateurs from professionals. We are professional property investors. We run the numbers, we do the due diligence, we seek advice from our network, we can look at strategies that other people might not necessarily be able to look at. But I think you're right in that, like, yeah, we could buy this 19-bed hotel. I was the same, was it about 2 years ago, I was looking in Anglesey. So I want an essay on Anglesey. Not even thinking about the stamp, well, land transaction tax, isn't it? It's the Welsh stamp duty, which is higher anyway in Wales. Yeah. So we were viewing properties that were like maybe 200k. I think it was like 9% stamp or something at the time, I can't remember. And I was in Bull Bay, which is like the top of Anglesey, and I saw this really sort of, I can't even remember the name of the hotel, the Bull Bay Hotel probably, and it just looked really shabby, really decrepit. I remember coming home thinking, I'm going to look into this, like shiny penny, probably the ADHD, the impulsivity, the dopamine. I'm going to look into this, and it was just completely wasted time. I'm going to fund a 20-bed hotel or what, do you know what I mean? It was like, it doesn't make any sense to do that. And for me, at the beginning, I thought, I want hotels, I want this, I want the big sexy deals, I want to be, you know, buying a hotel in Miami and all that ego-ridden shit. But now I'm like, no, I'll just buy houses. Like, I'm happy with houses. It's going to give me the cash flow that I want. I don't need all these fancy strategies. I do like SA though, so Airbnb. I know you're scarred by that, but I really like it, and I think ours is doing well because it's themed. It's like pirate themed,
yeah, I've seen it.
It
looks nice, to be fair.
I want another one. I want to do a Harry Potter one, but I enjoy that. I don't particularly like buy-to-let's great. They're solid, they're stable, but they're really boring.
So I think this is, again, going back to, you know, you've got that level of imagination and that flair for wanting to do that sort of thing. I'm just like, it's just a box. It's a means to an end. And it's like, you know, you know, do them nicely, treat the tenants well, look after them, maintain them and what have you. But I'm like, you know, if someone goes, do you want the wall blue or green? I'm like, whatever, you know, just paint it.
I don't care, just paint it.
No, I don't care, but I just don't have that, like, design-led element or excitement about them in that manner. I'm like, I look at the spreadsheets and the numbers and go, you know, we're learning a new formula in Excel, amazing. We can work out ROI by doing this, this and this. Or so it's like I've got really different mindsets to you, I suppose, in that way. But
that's why I like talking to you, because you can help me as well. So talk to us about like what you're going through at the moment, like your most recent deal, because I know you do a lot of title splits and that seems to be really fruitful, sort of lucrative. Do you want to talk to us about that?
Yeah, sure. I guess we sort of fell into it. I suppose this is where keeping yourself educated and keeping part of a network and engaging with other people that are doing similar things helps, because we did a direct-to-vendor campaign, had this gentleman come back, he had this nice big house in Oxton, and I was like, right, that's not a 2 up, 2 down buy-to-let. It was basically a nice building, nice area, 4 flats in the building. And I was thinking, I'd really like to own that because it's a pretty building, which is completely different to what I'm usually like. Grew up sort of relatively around the area. My dad lives in the next road over. My granddad's a few roads over. So I was like, it's a little bit sentimental. And he was like, do you know the road? I was like, I know exactly where you mean. And then sort of Colin and I were having a coffee with a guy, and it was like our eyes were like, oh my God, this is a beautiful building. And then he told us how much he wanted for it. And I was like, that seems reasonable. But the rent for the building at that price, it just really didn't work because he's got 4 flats in there, but he's one of these guys that had the property for a while. He'd not raised the rents in line with market, and we were just looking thinking, it's gorgeous, but how can we make this work? And we sort of said to him, look, you know, we'll come back to you, we'll have a little think. And he wanted to sell on a yield basis, which was fine because it worked out. We thought we were getting a bargain. Yeah. So we basically went away and we were like, what can we do with this? We then sat down, we were thinking, and we'd been on like a couple of courses where we'd seen things about title splits, but they'd always been mentioned in like passing with no real kind of, this is exactly how it works, this is what you can do with them. Then we sat down with our coach and we said, this is an opportunity that's come across our desk, so to speak. And he was like, right, what's each individual flat worth? So we kind of said, you know, probably about 120 or whatever. And he's like, and he's selling you the building for 300. I'm like, yep. He goes, so basically you split the titles and you create each one as a lease. So effectively then what you're doing is you're taking the kind of, I guess, the value of the building as a freehold. You buy the freehold, then you create leases for each one of the individual flats. And then each lease, because if you think you pay 300 for a building, each flat's worth about 100 or 120, straight away you can see that you've increased the value. Yeah. They needed a small amount of refurbishment, but nothing major. Right. So there wasn't, you know, this massive outlay in terms of bringing them up to standards. They were fine. And then so gradually we did that, we split the titles, and then what that allowed us to do then is basically pull the money out that we'd paid for the building plus a little bit more, and then we were like, this works. We've basically got a building for free and we've got cash flow now from the rent. So we've staggered the rents up, getting them back up closely to market rent. Just because, you know, we don't want to go into, you know, hi, I'm your new landlord. Oh, by the way, your rent's going up like £300 a month or whatever. We don't feel that's very fair to the tenant. But likewise, you know, we can't leave them on a historically low rent. It's not fair to us in that situation. So we've staggered them up. But because we then did that and we saw how that could work, that is our other focus with our strategy. So it's social housing and title splits. Yeah. And we've basically looked for more and more opportunities to do the same thing again. So we've bought a few off that vendor. We've also done it with commercial stock, so commercial on the bottom and then flats above. And it's a lot of paperwork to it, but it's just I think there's probably why I like it. It's just process. Just, you know, buy this, create these leases, draw your plans out, you know, make sure you've got your structure of your company. You have to have a very specific structure of the company to make it work as well in terms of stamp duty and the way that works. But it's just strategy I just love. You know, some of them we've done where we haven't pulled all of our money back out, but that's fine. We may have got 3 flats over the course of a building. We've left, you know, a little bit of money in each one, but that's fine because, you know, ones where we pull our money out of, it balances it out and what have
absolutely.
You. So it's
brilliant.
Fine.
It's scary. I remember didn't you say, I think not long ago, oh, we need to raise like 300 grand, or you had like Angel 300 grand.
Yep.
And I remember thinking, oh my God, how, at the beginning of your property journey, so just going to want to backtrack a little bit, I want to talk about like mindset with money.
Yep.
And lending money. How did you feel doing that initially? Because I had, it was the same with bridging. I was like, I'm never going to get a bridging loan. Now we bridge everything. Apart from 1 or 2 we've mortgaged immediately because we didn't really need to bridge it. But we've bridged pretty much everything. We've loaned hundreds of thousands. And now I'm just a bit like, sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't really want to lend anymore. I want to build my own capital, which is what I do in my business. And I prefer to do that at this moment in time. But it was a very big mindset shift for me because I was like, oh my God, I'm going to take like £70,000 of this person's money. That's like more than what I'd earn in a year. Like it was really scary. But obviously the more you do it, you get comfortable with that uncomfortability. And as long as you can see the exits, for me, like I'm like, yeah, that's fine. It's no problem. Did you have a mindset issue with that at the beginning like I did? How did you change it? Or was your attitude always, no, it's absolutely fine. I know how to get that money back?
No, at the start it was a bit of a strange situation because you're I think when you go through the training, there was a catchphrase, and this is where this kind of thing doesn't work for me, because it was something like this overly enthusiastic, how are you doing? Oh, I'm doing that property stuff, you
I'm
know.
excited.
I'm excited. That was the phrase. I'm
I love
excited.
that phrase.
So I don't, and I obviously can't remember it. So it was always that I'm not one of these people that walks into a room going, oh, I'm excited, you know, come and get on my property journey with me. So it all felt very false to me, and I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Wasn't comfortable doing it, and felt it just wasn't me. I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And so I had a blocker in the sense that I didn't want to be this false version of me, although I do post so much more on social media these days.
It's good.
Well, it's also, I think people will look at me and go, oh, that's not Louise, you know, that she's not like that, you know, normally and stuff. So have put myself out of my comfort zone there, because I would never sort of say, by the way, I've got this deal coming up, if you're interested, this is what I offer. Whereas now I will do that, but you know, 4 years ago I just wouldn't have done that. But I think we started just almost doing things with, like, we've got like a close circle of friends that we go out with for like a few drinks from time to time. It's actually our old neighbours, and we've got like a little WhatsApp group with them, and we just said to some of them, look, this is what we do if you're interested. And it was just, this is what we do if you're interested, not this I'm excited, get on board with us. And one of them just phoned back and said, I'm interested, I've got 10k to invest, which is massive to them because it's what they've saved, but in the grand scheme of buying a house, it's not a lot of money. And I remember picking up the phone and speaking to them, and Carl was like, you're speaking too fast, slow down, you sound really too excited and just, you sound too keen. And I think it was almost that desperation to want to kickstart and get going with it, that when they were like, we've got this 10k, and you're like, oh my god, someone's going to loan us, someone's trusting us to do that. And I think it was, we always were able to show, like, this is the deal that we're doing, this is how we're going to get the money back out. Or if we're not going to get the money back out, we will also do things whereby, if we know, say we're going to leave the money in for a year, we would quite happily sacrifice that cash flow, give that money back to the investor and say, look, we will pay you back your capital minus, I don't know, whatever it would be, plus this chunk of money every month, and then there's yours paid back.
So at the beginning, like, how did you feel?
Yeah, it was a little bit scary. You're taking, not taking, you're borrowing someone's savings. They've worked hard for that money. I guess we always wanted to make sure that we knew how we were going to make that payment back to that person. Never wanted to have a conversation like, oh, actually, you know what, X is overrun, or this has cost more than we anticipated. And so we have really, really strict criteria with our deals where they have to make a certain amount of return on the investment. We're not prepared to leave money in for more than a certain amount of years. And we'll always explain to the person that we're doing, is it a deal by deal? Are you loaning us your money for 2-year period? So we do deal by deal, or 2 years is the general way that we work. And then we'll if it's a 2-year, we'll recycle it through a number of deals. And then if we come in, say 6 months before the end of those 2 years, we'll reach back out and say, do you want your capital back? Do you want to go again? And have that conversation. So then we know that before we then go into the next deal, if we're coming close to when that angel's due their money back, we'll just say, right, okay, we'll park that. We'll make sure we've got that money to give that person back, rather than putting it into a future deal. So yeah, I think the more you do it, the more comfortable you become with it. At first, borrowing £10,000 from somebody was like shocking, scary, horrific. But yeah, now to your point, you borrow hundreds of thousands and you're probably more comfortable with it. But again, it's an experience thing, isn't it? It's trusting yourself, knowing what you're capable of, knowing what you're not capable of, and setting yourself boundaries that then make you feel more confident that you're capable of making sure that payment is going back to the person. But I think for us, we wanted to scale. And to scale, you have to loan, in my opinion anyway, unless you're coming across, unicorn deals left, right and centre, which we're not. We're doing good deals, but not the most amazing deals, but we're doing deals where we're happy with and we know we can get the funds back. But we don't want to do one deal, then another deal, then another deal. We want to do multiple deals at any one point in time, so that we can scale within a certain time period. So to achieve that goal, you have to get the finance to back you, and if you otherwise you're not going to be successful, I don't think.
You made a good point there as well. You said knowing like what you are not capable of. And I think that's really important. You said, you know what you can do, you know what you can't do, you know what money can lend, whether it's feasible in the property, whether it's not feasible, whether people are going to stay in for a long period of time, which then gives you more security because you haven't got the pressure of getting that money back to them straight away after the deal or the refinance or whatever. Knowing what you're not capable of is also, I found that's quite important as well. So I don't know if you've heard it yourself, maybe not, in different circles, and you hear people who, I don't know, I don't want to sound like smug about it, but you know when, and I know we've paid a shit ton of money for education, and I know that some of it left, you know, there was a lot to be desired, you know, some of it was rubbish, some of it was brilliant, and we couldn't fault it. But I find that when I'm hearing, sometimes in different networking events that we go to, and I do networking across the different parts of the country, I hear people loaning other people's money, and they're talking about different property strategies, and in my head I'm thinking, well, why would you do that? That's a little bit dangerous. Are you sure you want it? And you can't question these people because you think, well, it's none of my business. But I think that's the difference between us having been educated, having loaned money from people, knowing what we're doing with it, and also having a coach as well to say, oh, this is safe, this is not safe. Ultimately, the decision's down to you. But knowing what you're not capable of as well, so that people's money is not at risk. When you said as well, you know, that first 10 grand that you got, like someone invested, we were the same. It was like at the beginning, like, oh my God. So it was 20 grand for us. It was like someone wants to invest, like somebody trusts us.
Yeah.
It's an amazing feeling. It's not a lot of money, 20 grand in the grand scheme of a property. But for somebody who's saved up 20 grand, I mean, I'd be devastated if I lost 20 grand. And it was also a bit of, well, we've already spent like 20 odd grand on our property training and our education and so on. We need to make sure this works. We need to make sure if we borrow this money from somebody, we make this work, we make it happen. But there are a lot of people that I speak to that I think they're making very dodgy, dangerous deals. And just in my opinion, they might execute them very well. I don't know. But when I hear them, I think, I would never in a million years loan you that money because you don't sound like you know what you're doing. You know, these people who've just watched a couple of YouTube clips, you know, the University of Google, and they say, oh, you can learn it all online. And you're like, well, you can, but it's piecing it all together. So you're doing the title splits now. You had to raise a lot of money. 300k, I think, is the
for
lot
one of them.
For one of them. What have you learned from that moment that you raised your first 10 grand to raising £300,000 of somebody else's money? What lessons can you impart to somebody who wants to scale?
I think for me, with that one for 300,000, I knew the value of the building and I knew the value of the deal.
The exits.
Exits. I was so clear on the exits of that one that not it couldn't fail to work, because that sounds very, you know, like those people you were just talking about. But I just knew that a property in that area would sell for that amount, so I knew I could get it financed at that amount. And you know, I see properties selling for more. There were so many comparables in there that, you know, I was just, not to sound contrite, but I was confident, very confident in that deal. So I felt very comfortable borrowing that 300,000. The person that loaned me the bulk of that, so 75% was loaned from one person. He wanted to come out, look at the property, see the area. I did like an investor pack for them. I said, you know, this is a deal by deal one, that wasn't a rolling investment. He came out and he said, that's fine, you know, I can see it. And I guess then I was confident, he was confident. I took him to another property around the corner that after we'd bought this one, we wanted to do exactly the same thing with. I said, while you're here, come and look at this with me. He was like, fine, if this one works, we'll do that one as well. So I don't know, I think it's just you naturally start to scale, you become more comfortable, you see it working as well. If you're doing it correctly and you know, you do finance them when you pull your money back out, or you're leaving a small amount in, but you knew you were going to leave that amount, you sort of see that, oh, okay, I did that and it worked, and I can do it again and it's worked again, and you just build up that level of confidence. So I don't think there's like a pearl of wisdom that I can say, do this and this will be the outcome. I think it's just continually doing it day in, day out, and living through it, and almost becoming your own proof of it's a viable model and it's a working model. And
I like how you said you brought the investor around with you as well, because so for me, sometimes it depends on the deal. When we've had investors, angel investors, I've been like, well, I'm not going through the ins and outs of the deal. We're not in business with them. They're not, on the paperwork. They're not going to be on the paperwork. We're only doing a loan agreement, and they trust us, and that's fine. Having those basic numbers, obviously I'm not doing title splits, but we're buying it for this, we're refurbing it for that, it's worth this at the end, we get this rent, just the basic numbers. But the fact that you've gone round with that investor, you've showed them another property, you've showed them the property that you're buying, you've showed them the numbers. It's confidence in your deal. You've built that confidence in yourself to be able to present that to somebody else, to say, actually, I think this is going to work. I know this is going to work because I can see from other sold comparables and so on. I think it is right. If you want to scale, you've got to be loaning other people's money unless you've got a money pot.
Which I don't, so.
None of us. No one does. Well, some people do. It's about scaling. Yes, you've got to use other people's money. I suppose what you've done there as well is you've shown them it's a win-win. So we had a bit of a mindset at the beginning, like, oh my God, we can't ask anyone for money, whether it was like 10 grand or, 60, 70 grand or whatever. We can't ask anyone for money. And I have this at the minute with the people that I'm coaching who are the beginners. Can't ask anyone else for money. I'm like, no, but it's not, you're not asking, you're offering them an opportunity, because it's a win-win. They make a good return on their money. You get to get the property or the refurb or, whatever it is. You're not asking anybody for money. You are saying, where I am, this is an opportunity. So I think that mindset shift for me was the biggest. It wasn't necessarily like the amount of money, although that got scarier. The more you start lending, you're like, fuck, that's a lot of money I'm borrowing off somebody here. How do I get this back? It was more of, actually, no, I'm offering you a chance to work with me, and I would like to work with you, and this is a good deal. So I think a win-win.
I think that you're right. It goes back to that beginning part of where we were speaking before about the whole, I'm excited and this is, come and get on board with my deal, which just never worked for me. But there was a point where you think, well, actually, you might have that money in the bank and you're earning a smaller amount. I know obviously interest rates have risen now, but at the time, you might be getting 1% on an ISA. I can offer you a much better percentage. And then I think what also happened to me is, I think people were like, well, why is she willing to offer me more than I'm getting in a bank? Why is she paying the extra? And I think a couple of times with our investors, we said, well, we're breaking that medium point where we would then have to pay more if we bridged it. So I get a win because it's not as expensive as bridging. You get a win because it's more than you're getting in your ISA or your savings account or what have you. So it's like, it's a win on both sides. And ultimately, yes, it's probably a win for me as well, because I get then a property out of it. But it was sort of explaining to them, I could go to a bank or a bridging company to get the funds as well, but I'm choosing to do it this way because it is another benefit. And I think then people are like, oh, right, okay, because you can sort of say to them why you're not doing a particular path, as opposed to them just thinking, why are they asking me for this money? Why don't they go to a bank? Because people, and I probably I'd have been like, well, why don't they just go and get a mortgage? Why don't they go and get a bridge? Why are they asking this way? And it's explaining that, you can get a win for you, a win for me, and it does work in that manner. But it still feels weird now when you speak to somebody else or people that in a wider circle that see what you do, but they're not really on board with what you do, or they don't engage with what you do. And I think some people will still look at me from the outside and go, seems a bit weird, or what have you. But I don't know. That's their problem, not mine, is the way I see it now.
Do you think it's meant, like, the way that we talk about money now, like, and the attitudes we have, the mindset we have, we can borrow 300 grand of someone else's money, we can do this, we can do that. I feel like the way that I talk about money now is not blasé, it's not nonchalant, it's not like I don't care about it. But I feel like I talk about, we all do, big figures as if it's like, we talk about buying property as if we're picking out a sandwich in the shop. We talk about big figures as if, I'm just lending like my little niece or nephew, I'm giving them a £5 pocket money. I feel like when you start to grow your portfolio, obviously your mindset shifts, it develops, you become more confident, you're in the same circles as other people. You start to talk about things probably in a very nonchalant way. You talk about money, what you're earning, what you're making in those circles. Other people from the outside looking in, I think, and I've had this conversation with a couple of friends, I think they think it's absolutely mental. And when I think about my life before business, not just property, when I think about my attitudes and my mindset before business, I don't think I would have ever said, oh yeah, I've just, what's that, like 90 grand? Yeah, I've just left 90 grand in that deal, but it's okay. In a couple of years, I'm going to pull it out and like 90 grand in a property. Yeah, it's only 90 grand. It's all right. I'll find that somewhere else. It's absolutely mental what we do, really.
I don't know whether I think culturally as well, because culturally we don't talk about money.
No.
And still, I would never ask somebody how much they earn. I would never want somebody to ask me how much I earn. I think, as a cultural thing, that's not a British person's psyche, but in other cultures it's very normalised. Yeah. So I think now I find talking about money easier. But still, if somebody asks me a direct question, I will answer them and what have you, but I'm still I'm comfortable talking about it, and I will, and in certain circumstances, but I also recognise there are certain circumstances where I wouldn't, and I still wouldn't want to, and it's probably with people who are friends but not involved in property, or they're not involved in business, and they've chosen a different path, and that's absolutely fine, and I've got this path, and I think sometimes those paths don't necessarily cross over.
I'm the same as you. I think Phil and I are the same in that we don't really talk about it with maybe our close friends. I was really surprised, actually. I think when we first started in property, before we even bought like our first investment house or property, I think when we told people what we were doing, oh yeah, we just spent 25 grand on this course, we're going to buy a house, we're going to be financially free in a week, and all that shit. It's amazing, it's going to be amazing, we're going to be millionaires. They all thought we were absolutely mental. They'd all thought we'd been scammed and conned. Oh, it's really risky. And I can understand they care because they're our friends. But then I also think there was a bit of crab mentality there. So with those friends now, some of them don't even really ask us how we're doing. And I'm fine with that. They might go, oh yeah, I saw your photo, Smuggler's Cove, it looks amazing. Oh yeah, thanks. And I don't go, yeah, well, it's got a return on investment, it costs us 40 grand on the refit. Because they don't care about that sort of thing. No. What I have found though I wouldn't say necessarily just friends, just from people from the outside looking in who know what we're doing, I think social media has a big part to play in people thinking that you are doing property, so therefore you must be millionaires and you must be absolutely loaded. And I don't think I've ever had less cash in my life.